So my name is Paulo Neves. I represent Raizen, which is a Brazilian company, one of the largest sugarcane producers in Brazil and in the world. And I'm in charge of the commercial department, the trading department for ethanol and oil products. So we do commercialize ethanol out of our 26 plants in Brazil, and we also held a downstream fuels business also there in Brazil and Argentina. And our trading activities, they are related to this commercialization of ethanol and plus international sourcing and trading of oil products as well. So RenovaBio is a great initiative from the Brazilian government. It aims to tackle our energy supply security for the longer term. So it's a very important longer term mandate in the country to help development of new sources of transport energy up to 2030. So Brazil is a net importer of gasoline and diesel, and our infrastructure for that imports is quite constrained out of this Petrobras system nowadays. So it's a natural movement to try to develop and promote more supply of ethanol and biodiesel coming throughout our countryside. So this industry in Brazil has a long story, almost 100 years already. It's quite competitive at actual oil prices and a very important social economic impact for the country instead of simply importing fuels. In terms of the ethanol market, we expect that the CBios, which are the carbon credits generated by the program, will incentivize additional production coming from sugarcane and corn ethanol during the next 10 years. It should be something that is market balanced. So it's not a subsidy, it's not something that is promoted directly by the government, but it will be balanced by supply and demand inside the country. So as in our natural movement, there is a ramp up. So obligations grow slowly in the beginning, and then more and more until reaching 10% GHG savings in 2030. So I wouldn't expect much of a change in the very first 5 years of the program for several of reasons, but the main one is this supply-demand balance of what is required of ethanol is basically already available in the country, and after that, the aim is exactly to promote additional production to come and to take a piece of the space of the gasoline that we forecast that the market will demand additionally in the country. Oh, that's actually a very good question. Although I can easily understand the reasoning behind it, we are a private company, and we, of course, like to play free market conditions, and we believe in it very dramatically. So we understand pretty much what is behind a criticism like that. But on the other hand, if you look at the numbers, the real figures, the northeast and the north of the country of Brazil it's a net importer of ethanol. So when you look at the figures, you're gonna see that actually the last couple of years we had the record imports from the United States. So it has been a ramp up, which is based on this demand growth in that region of the country, and the production basically being stable there. So yeah, one could easily criticize the tariffs, but others can say, if it's really something that changes the market, why is it that we are having record numbers of imports in Brazil exactly now after the tariffs were put in place? So being in Brazil, the way I see it, US is a great producer of ethanol, very competitive, the same way Brazilians are, and the there is, market being developed everywhere for both countries. So I expect these imports to keep being placed in Brazil and even grow in the coming years. So it's difficult to say whether it is fair or not, but the numbers are there. So California is quite interesting market. They were the first ones in the world to not only look at biofuels or ethanol as a booster to gasoline, but also look at this GHG emissions perspective. And when it comes to that, it's obvious and very clear to everybody that sugarcane ethanol promotes a very important and strong GHG savings against gasoline. Nowadays should be between 80 to 90% GHG savings, which is clearly not the same case for other cultures. For example, corn, when you're producing ethanol. We're much more efficient converting the sunlight into energy through the sugarcane plant than other cultures. So naturally then, as a consequence, we've been developing this market because California, in order to reach its targets, needs to use more and more ethanol that reduces GHG emissions. So the way I see it is that it is something that will keep its trend. I don't see that big change from what we've seen this year. It was pretty good year against the previous ones that we see before. There are other elements in this equation that may change things, like the sugar prices, the sugar world balance that makes it less or more competitive in terms of pricing. But I would say that it's fair to imagine and to forecast that Brazil will keep its share coming into California in the coming years. So nothing big against what we see this year, but still relevant for us. Corn ethanol industry in Brazil is a reality. It's there. It's ready to grow, and it will compete with sugarcane, definitely. So there are different cultures. They have different strengths. A lot on the sugarcane, as I said before, has to do of the efficiency of the plant to convert sunlight into transport energy. On the other hand, on the corn side, there's a lot of efficiencies in terms of producer perspective, land perspective on the corn industry in Brazil, because it's using the same area or the same land that is used for soy as a second harvest in the same season. So they are pretty interesting in that way. Mato Grosso is far away from the demand in Brazil, so it's more than 3,000 kilometers. So if we measure this in Europe, the distance should be, I don't know, from Paris to almost Russia. So they also have their challenges to reach out the markets for their product. So having that said, they will naturally feed some pieces of the country. Brazil is a big country, so we have all the north region of the country, which is still far away from the center south where we do produce sugarcane. So this probably will be supplied by Mato Grosso. And there are several other logistics and infrastructure developments in that region to be covered so that they keep growing their production over the years. But as a Brazilian, I'm very happy to see these developments. The country again is big and very different socially speaking. If you compare the littoral, the coast, cities and the places to the countryside. So it's definitely something very important for our development as a country. And of course, if this comes also in infrastructure, new journey and investments in Brazil, also a good opportunity as well. So as a sugarcane producer, we're happy to compete. We are gonna, keep doing our business and keep trying to be more and more efficient to keep up our market share in an environment where we have newcomers close to us. So competition is good. Competitions make us stronger, make us better in the long run. So we're fine with that. I truly believe that there is an important lesson to be followed by the Brazilian example. So when you look at India, when you look at Thailand, there are other big sugarcane industries, but mainly focused on sugar and much less on ethanol. There is clearly an example to be learned and followed, not only because it tends to build a different approach and an additional product to better commercialize the sugar content that is produced through the sugarcane, but also to allow the countries to be more resilient in the tough times. So as any commodity, everything is a cycle also in ethanol and sugar, and when things are good, fine, but the difficult years always come, and it's truly and easy to see that whenever you have another product which is big enough, like ethanol in Brazil, as an alternative to the producers, it makes them pretty much stronger than when they don't have it. So the vicious cycle of not having alternatives that you see now in India, for example, that makes producers suffer more and more and makes the government puts more and more money in subsidies every year, would not happen if they used to have or if they had the alternative of ethanol. So in this perspective, for me it's clear that this experience that we have in Brazil, where we balance things in different products, is certainly something that should be seen as an opportunity to development in these countries. Sugarcane industry is amazing in terms of socio-economical developments. I had the opportunity in my country to follow a greenfield development in the interior of Goiás, and it's quite amazing how this changes the city. 1,000 families in a completely different condition, and everything that comes around it. So when I look at countries like India, Thailand, that I love to be there, and to their people, it really looks like something that should be seen and should be replicated, because it helps the people and it stays for a longer term good for the country. So I really truly believe in that.